is a Mets here. For all your Mets here, let's go. Bring it home. Bring it home. Bring it home Make it happen. There's no stopping us now. We're gonna do it again. It's not a question of how. It's just a matter. It's just a matter. It's just a matter of when.
Hello again, everybody. Joe Piscopo, Shea Stadium. The big story. Mets 86. Exciting, thrilling, awesome. Let's take a look.
We got the teamwork to make the dream work. We got the teamwork to make the dream work. We got the teamwork to make the dream work. Ooh, we got the teamwork.
You know what that feels like, everybody? That feels like as happy a Mets fan can be when your team loses in the wild card round. The Bronx is burning. Literally, the Bronx is burning. Once again, it takes a complete embarrassment for Yankee fans to actually realize and stop being in their delusional state to realize that this Yankees team was never the team that you saw in the first half. You got embarrassed. You got embarrassed more than the Dodgers, the Braves, the Mets. And that's even hard to fathom considering the fact that the 111 win team Dodgers lose to the Padres. The 101 win team in the Braves lose to the Phillies. And the 101 Mets lose to the Padres. Yet the Yankees by far embarrassed themselves so much more because of the fact of them chanting after they beat the Guardians, "We want Houston. Who's your daddy?" Well, we already know who your daddy is because it's been the Astros for 6+ years now. On top of that, the Yankees is basically, this is where I picture the Yankees front office when it comes down to telling their fan base why they are right and they are wrong, right? They told you IKF was a great shortstop. They told you that Aaron Judge is worth $213 million over, 7-8 years? They told you Josh Donaldson was the better third baseman, offensively and defensively, than Gio Urshela. They told you that Garrett Cole is the ace. They told you on and on and on that Frankie Montas was the best option for them. Yet, the delusional Yankee fans continue to believe that they are one of the better teams in baseball, and they're not. The reason why they got as far as they did was because the American League is complete garbage. We said this all year. The Astros can beat really good teams, and they can beat really bad teams. The difference in the first half compared to the second half was the Yankees had a very easy schedule in the first half compared to the second half. They played a lot better teams than they did in the first half. The Astros were good the entire year. So to think that the Yankees had a shot against the Astros was laughable. And Yankee fans should have known that before the Guardian series. After the Guardian series, when he took him 5 games, a team that is a pest, but they weren't very good, and the Yankees barely beat them. And then you saw when the Yankees faced really good pitching and a team that doesn't strike out and a team that puts the bat on the ball and hits big home runs, there was no chance for the Yankees. And it was only fitting that Aaron Judge, 62 home runs in the regular season, nearly a triple crown, gets the final out to get swept in the ALCS, possibly his final time in pinstripes. A weak ground ball to Presley to first base. Astros sweep. Astros win the ALCS, going to the World Series once again, beating the Yankees once again, and yet again. The Astros show you how it's supposed to be done. Cheating or not cheating. Let's be honest. Yeah, the Astros cheated. We all know that. But remember what happened with the Yankees, who also cheated that same year with the Apple Watches. They did it in 17, they did it in 18, and they did a little bit in 19 until they cracked down on that situation. Yeah, of course, Major League Baseball is not going to mess with the darling New York Yankees. So let's bury the Astros and not talk about the Yankees who were cheating with the Apple Watches, doing the exact same thing, by the way, not with a trash can, but with Apple Watches that the Astros did. So before anybody wants to go crazy about, oh, the Astros cheated. Well, the Yankees cheated. They just didn't do it as better as the Astros. Too bad. And the baby bombers are no more. I will get to all your comments and say what up to everybody, but I just had to go on that rant a little bit because as soon as the Yankees lost, you have to go on Twitter. You have to troll the Yankee fans because they love to troll the Mets fans, and why the hell not, right? Got to get some fun times, especially when you're a Mets fan. Yeah, you can talk about, oh, you haven't won since 86. Yes, you're going to hear about the 27 World Championships. Yes, you're going to hear about this, that, and the other from Yankee fans. But they were the ones that some of them came on this channel and says the Yankees are going all the way. I don't know why people thought they were so delusional. They had no pitching staff. Their bullpen was terrible. I don't want to hear about Andrew Benintendi. I don't want to hear about DJ LeMahieu. DJ LeMahieu wasn't the same player for the last 2 years. Andrew Benintendi was good, but congratulations. Were we going to win one game against the Astros, even with Andrew Benintendi? You weren't better than the Astros until you realize that this whole team's got to get blown up and you got to go through a new process and find out what this team actually needs. Maybe it is getting rid of Cashman or getting rid of Boone, whatever it is. But the whole mentality, the philosophy is not working. Home runs or bust doesn't get you championships. All right, you could talk about, yes, Houston hit big home runs, but they put the bat in the ball. They made the Yankees make errors on the field. You know how they did that? They didn't strike out. When you strike out, the ball doesn't get in play. You give no chance of a possible error or a mistake. Missing fly balls dropping in. Easy double plays getting botched by the Yankees. You put the ball in play, bad things can happen. And that's exactly what the Astros showed in that series. Yes, they can hit clutch home runs. They got most of their runs on home runs, but they put the bat on the ball. They struck out less than anybody in the playoffs. And they put the bat on the ball and make the team makes mistakes. Even the Seattle Mariners played hard against the Astros more than the Yankees did. And listen, I hope the Yankees never change the philosophy. Keep cashing for another 25 years. You know what? Give Boone a 10-year contract because the misery of Yankee fans makes me feel a lot better most days because of the fact that it's not the Yankees organization. You got, as a baseball fan, you respect the organization, what they did in their history, but is the Yankee fans, the spoiled brats of this generation that might have seen one championship and were too young to remember the late 90s, act like they're spoiled and it's the Yankees or bust. It's world championships or bust. Well, you actually have to win multiple championships like the dynasty of the late 90s did to garner that respect. All right. The Giants winning 3 out of every other year winning championships. That was as close to the dynasty you were going to get to the late 90s Yankees. It's impossible with this new way of Major League Baseball. And I said this over and over again. Doesn't matter if you're a Dodger fan. Doesn't matter if you're a Mets fan, Braves fan. And for, you know what? If the Phillies win, the Astros fan. It doesn't matter how good you were in the regular season. The Dodgers had the most wins in baseball. They couldn't get out of the first round. All right? It's the team that gets hot at the right time does damage in the playoffs. We see this every year. And oh, by the way, for anybody who wants to kill and talk about how bad the NL East is, 3 out of the last 4 years, an NL East team made the World Series. And it's funny because people love to bash on the NL East teams, right? We can talk about the choke job that the Braves do every year, except for last year, which was an amazing accomplishment, the way they did it with 88 wins, right? The Nationals had 92 wins in 2019. 87-win Phillies are going to the World Series as a 6th seed. And everybody can say, oh, if this format wasn't here, the Phillies would never be in the playoffs. Well, you know what? Every fan base wouldn't care what seed they were. If they were going to the World Series where the Phillies are in that spot, nobody would care. So the hell with the playoff format. I think it's actually better because of the fact that you get situations like the Phillies. Because, yeah, we know the Phillies weren't good defensively. The Phillies still don't have a good bullpen. But you know what? They score 5 runs a game. They scored 57 runs in 11 games. We knew one thing that this team had, a ton of power, a ton of star offensive power. That's how they won these games. Yeah, Zach Wheeler pitched well. Yeah, Nola had a couple of games. But let's be honest, they didn't really pitch that great. They scored a ton of runs. That's how they won. And you know what? You've seen the Astros struggle offensively for the most part. I don't know if the Phillies can stop them pitching-wise, but they can score with the Astros, and that's why this series is very intriguing. Again, I'd rather see the Astros win, but if the Phillies do win, Met fans should take it as 3 out of the last 4 years an NL East team won the World Series. Take that as a notch on the belt for the Mets and say, look, we can do this too. Why the hell not? And that's what I have to say about what just happened over the last 2 weeks in the Major League Baseball playoff. I said it once and I'll say it again. The Major League Baseball playoffs is like the NHL playoffs now. Win and anything, get in the playoffs and anything can happen. Major League Baseball's playoffs has been a lot like the NHL playoffs. The NHL playoffs are one of the most exciting, fun sporting events to watch in late March into April. That playoff is great because of the fact that anybody, I don't care if you're the 1st seed or the 8th seed, anybody can win the Stanley Cup. Now in Major League Baseball, anybody can win a World Series. And this was an exact example of what can happen when a team gets hot in the Philadelphia Phillies. And you know what? Too bad for the other teams. Too bad for the Mets. Too bad for the Dodgers. Too bad for the Braves. Too bad for the Yankees. Because you know what? As good as you might have thought your team was, it comes down to clutch hitting, clutch pitching, being hot at the right time. If you didn't do it within a series, I don't care if it was a 3-game series, 5-game series, 7-game series, you're supposed to be better than that team according to your record. Beat them. Don't make excuses. Every game in this ALCS, Boone and the Yankees made excuses. Game 1 was the lucky hits. Game 2 was the roof. Game 3 was all types of other hits. Who knows what else it is? Yesterday, it was excuse me. The game 2 was Valdez's dark jersey that they wore so he can cover up whatever sticky stuff he had, and the roof. Then it was game 3. The Yankees, who knows what it was? I don't know. There was supposed to be a roof over Yankee Stadium. I don't know. But you know what? There was an excuse every time. And then everybody started to bring up Cortez yesterday. All of a sudden, the groin injury pops up. But when he pitched 3 innings on short rest, we didn't hear about the groin. But yesterday, we heard about the groin. Stop making excuses. And this goes for all fan bases, all teams. You didn't win. The Mets got embarrassed by the Padres. They don't deserve to win. I don't care how they had 13, 14 more wins than the Padres. The Dodgers had about 25 wins more than the Padres. They got their ass kicked. The Phillies beat up the Padres. Somebody had to win that series. The Phillies beat the Braves. So what? It's too bad. So with that said, guys, welcome to Mets Talk Live. Talking Mets at Rob here. Hopefully everybody's doing well and enjoying the playoffs. Again, I know if you're not a fan of the teams that are involved, again, I don't care if you're a fan of any other team. Everybody hates the Yankees, mostly Yankee fans. So it was all over. I think almost everybody wanted Houston to beat the Yankees. And the fashion that they did was really fun. So with that said, guys, don't forget to hit on that like button. I'm going to go over a couple of more things with the postseason. We'll talk about our Mets. And I will also talk about what I'll be doing during the offseason. So you guys have an idea. I'm going to throw up a schedule on my community page so you guys can have an idea of when I'm going to come on during the offseason. Obviously, when the World Series is over, which should be in about a week or so, week and a half, that's when the hot stove gets going. That's when MLB free agency starts going. So there'll be a lot of videos, a lot of live streams to go on. Every Monday, Mets Talk Live, 5 p.m. every Monday. Wednesday will be Mets Hot Stove. And Friday, all at 5 p.m. 5 p.m. on Monday, Mets Talk Live. 5 p.m. on Wednesday, Mets Hot Stove. 5 p.m. on Friday, MLB trade rumors and free agency. We will do all that throughout the offseason. And any breaking news will pop onto the channel and everything like that. So with that said, guys, hopefully everybody's doing well. I will get to your comments as soon as I possibly can. And we will get to the top of the list right now and say what up to Alien, J, JL, Ronnie, Robert, Grant. What's up, buddy? Yeah, the 7-line hat. I know, man. They got a lot of good stuff. I did buy a couple of hats as well, so I'm a little happy about that. So, yeah, we love the 7-line for sure. Let's see. We got we got Grant. What's up, buddy? Let's see. Timothy. We also have, Muttley. Yeah, Muttley. Listen, I said this earlier in the playoffs. Got to watch out for the Phillies because of the offensive power. And I said the Phillies were going in somewhat hot. Right? They had to play until the very end to make sure they got a wild card spot. And they did it. And, they're not the best team. We all know that. They don't got a great pitching staff. They don't. The rotation's pretty good, but it's not great. Their bullpen is still a little shaky. But when you get hot at the right time, they got that swagger. Right? And you know what? There's 2 guys that I wanted the Mets to get in the offseason in Nick Castellanos and Kyle Schwarber. That would have looked a lot different in that Mets lineup. But you know what? We talked about how bad Schwarber and Castellanos' defense is. It's fine. But you know what? If you're manageable in the outfield or as a D in the outfield, you should be fine. So, again, the Phillies got hot. You can't take away nothing from them. They played well. They beat the teams they needed to beat, right? Nobody gave them a shot against the Braves. People gave them a shot against the Padres because the Padres are good, but they're a team that likes to choke as well in the playoffs. The Phillies, it seems like they are the team of destiny this year. Like, honestly. Now, again, I don't think anybody's better than the Astros, but what has that really told you in this playoffs this year? It tells you it doesn't matter how good you are or if you're the better team. It comes down to one pitch, one inning, one game. And if you guys listen to Boomer and Gio in the morning, Boomer says that all the time with hockey. So that's what you have to think of when it comes to the Major League Baseball playoffs. Look at the NHL playoffs. You make it in, anything can happen. And that's what the baseball playoffs has been over the last 5 years. And I don't care about the format. The format is not the problem. The problem is too many people think their teams are unbreakable and they can't lose, right? You got Dodger fans, which I can assure you, I'm looking at the chat right now. I don't see any Dodger fans here. Well, Jay, you see the difference with the Yankees when it comes to the Phillies? The Phillies actually made big signings, right? And I still think that Zach Wheeler is more dominant than Garrett Cole. I think Nola is better than Cortez. And the rest, I think Suarez is better than any other pitcher that the Yankees can throw out there. It's not just the fact, and you know what the Phillies haven't done a lot of in this playoffs? Strike out a lot. They put a lot of balls in play. And the problem with the Yankees is the fact that they don't change their philosophy, right? The Phillies needed power in their offense. Besides Bryce Harper, there was really nobody else that was really putting up big power numbers. Castellanos provides a little bit more power. Schwarber provides a hell of a lot of power. And then you have the NL MVP in Bryce Harper last year. So they helped more with their lineup. And then let's be honest, they infused young players like Stott, who is, I think, is going to be a pretty damn good player for the Phillies. You know, the Yankees brought up Oswald Cabrera, who's a role player, brought a little bit of energy, but is not that guy, right? It was Aaron Judge or nobody on the Yankees. If you take Aaron Judge off the Yankees, they're a 75-win team. If you take Nick Castellanos off the Phillies, they're probably winning the same amount of games and probably still in the same spot than they are right now. The Yankees wouldn't even make the playoffs without Aaron Judge. That's the difference. There's multiple people in the lineup for the Phillies that can beat you. Who can beat you other than Aaron Judge? That's why the Yankees lost, because the two guys that they relied on all year, in Stanton and Judge, when they don't play at their best, the Yankees lose. And that's exactly what happened in this postseason, right? Judge was what? 2 for 20 in 2 for 16, 1 for 16 in the playoffs. That's why the Yankees lost, because if they don't get no production from Judge, the team is not that good. At least the Phillies, you have Harper, you have Schwarber, you have Castellanos, you got Hoskins, you got Stott, you got Bohm, you got a lot of different guys. You got Segura, who made that big hit in the wild card series against the Cardinals. So there's so much you have to look at when it comes to that. It's not just, oh, the Yankees just have power and strikeouts. You know what the Phillies did less of? Strike out a lot less than the Yankees did. The Yankees struck out more times than anybody in the postseason. You're not winning that way. All right, we got Rocky, we got Timothy, we got Jay. Jay, the Phils are the 15 Mets. I think the Phillies roster as a whole is better than the 15 Mets, but I get why you say that. You know, the 15 Mets were just an odd team. Like, they had really great pitching. Other than that, their lineup wasn't really that good. I would give the Phillies lineup a hell of a lot more firepower than the 15 Mets. The Mets got hot at the right time. I guess that's what you're going at, that the Mets got hot at the right time. And that's what the Phillies are doing. So, yeah. Let's see what else we got. We got, let's see, Eric, how you doing? Well, Jay, again, nobody knew how this playoff format, was going to affect the two teams that had the byes, right? That's why when people were just assuming, oh, the Dodgers are going to make the World Series or make the NLCS and the Braves will, nobody knew how this break was going to affect the teams. Now, granted, can it affect a series? Yeah, I guess. But again, I get people say that the division doesn't matter. And yeah, you could say that this year, but in the American League, it holds suit, right? The number 1 and number 2 say made the ALCS. So what was wrong with the American League? Well, clearly the American League is no competition compared to the National League, right? You got 3 teams that had over 100 wins. And it's just a matter of when it comes down to it. When it comes down to the format, it is what it is. And, you know, if that's the case, then the Mets should have had no problem getting through the wild card series. They didn't have a break, right? It shouldn't have mattered, right? Everybody said the Mets would have benefited more than any other team if they would have won the division and had the bye week, the bye in the playoffs. Maybe they would, maybe they wouldn't. We don't know. So just to assume that was the reason is not fair to a team like the Astros, who had the same amount of time off than the Braves, then the Dodgers, and the Astros, right? And oh well, I mean, excuse me, and the Astros and the Yankees, right? But the Astros found a way to get and it's not like they were scoring 100 runs here. They weren't. They were struggling as well, but they found a way to win. Good teams, great teams find a way to win, no matter if they had a bye or if they played a better team or a team that's not that great. The Astros found a way to win. They basically won this series without Altuve and Alvarez doing basically nothing. So it's no excuse for the Mets, for the Braves, the Dodgers, the Yankees, or whoever else had a bye, who would have had a bye. You know what it did? It set up your rotation. It got your guys who might have had a couple of bumps and bruises, got them healthy, right? When the Phillies were going with the number 3 starter or number 4 starter, and the Mariners weren't going with the number 2 starter, they were going with number 3 starter. So the advantage went to the teams with the bye. They set up their rotations. The bumps and bruises that these teams had the opportunity to get a couple of guys healthy. When the wildcard teams that had to go right into the series were pitching in number 3 and number 4 starters, and they were already behind the 8 ball because the teams that were supposed to be better weren't clutch. That's on them. It's just, the division doesn't matter, so you got to make excuses for these teams. It shouldn't go like that. Blindbeard, how you doing? Sanderwood. Well, Sanderwood, you know what it is? Again, and I said this the entire year, right? Of course I wanted the Mets to win the division. Would that have changed the outcome? Maybe not. Maybe the Braves, the Phillies would have beat the Mets. Who knows? But it comes down to the fact, and I said it for at least the last 5 to 6 years, the hottest team makes a run in the playoffs. It's just that simple now. And if people who complain, like, oh, this is not how playoffs baseball is supposed to play. Yes, it is. Why isn't it fun? Because if the Phillies were the Mets fans would be going absolutely insane. Oh, we knew we were better. We shouldn't have been the 6th seed. Mets fans would have been going absolutely crazy, giving the middle finger to everybody that said that we weren't good enough. The same way the Philly fans are. The Phillies had a chip in their shoulder, right? If it was the Yankees that were the 6th seed and got to the World Series, Yankee fans would have been like, oh, we told you we were better. Same thing with the Dodgers, same thing with the Padres, same thing with every other team. So the hell with anybody who says they don't like this format, because when your team, and I'm telling you right now, if they keep this format the way it is, there's going to be a time when the Yankees make the 6th seed, the Mets make the 6th seed, the Braves make the 6th seed, and go all the way to the World Series and possibly win it. And nobody's going to give a damn because your team got hot at the right time. So until you have your team in it and you say the same thing now, oh, the Mets shouldn't have been in the playoffs. This is ridiculous. The Mets shouldn't be in the World Series. The Mets shouldn't have won the World Series because they were the 6th seed. Nobody cares 15 years from now when they look back and says, oh, look who won the 2022 World Series. The Phillies. Wow, they must have been a really good team, right? Nobody's going to care that they're the 6th team in 15 years. It just don't care. That's just how it should go, right? Nobody cared about the St. Louis Blues winning a couple of years ago, winning the Stanley Cup when they were the worst teams in the league in the first half of the season. Came on strong in the second half, got into the playoffs at the 8th seed and won the Stanley Cup. You think Blues fans cares that they were the 8th seed? No. Until your team is in that spot and make a run and possibly win a World Series, you don't care. And the Philly fans shouldn't care. And nobody should say, oh, well, you shouldn't have won the World Series because you were a 6 seed. Last year, you would have never been in the playoffs. Well, too bad. You know what? The Dodgers should have been better. The Braves should have been better. The Mets should have been better. Just because those teams lost had nothing to do with why teams that you know you're supposed to be better than beat you. You tip your cap and you look to next year and how you can better your team and maybe actually find a guy who can actually be clutch in big spots in the playoffs, like certain players that got clutch hits against those big teams. And that's the way baseball should be. Big time players are supposed to show up no matter if you got a bye week, if you got 2 days off, 1 day off, no days off. The big boys supposed to come through. You're not a superstar for nothing. The Yankees lost because Aaron Judge was a no-show. All right? That's why they lost. When Aaron Judge performed, the Yankees win. Look at his stats with Yankees winning games during the season. Judge was terrible in the playoffs. They got by the Guardians because the Guardians aren't good enough. All right? Terry Francona did everything he can to have the Yankees win Game 5. If they had any competence at that moment, they could have probably beat the Yankees. They had Bieber ready to go, and they were worried about the next series, and that's why he didn't go. And that's the problem with teams like the Mets, the Dodgers, and the Braves, who were more concerned about the team they were going to face after the team they were supposed to beat, and that got them in trouble. And you know what? They deserve to lose those series. That's why when I said pitch Scherzer, pitch DeGrom, don't give any bulletin board material to the teams that you're facing, because you don't think when the media kept an X and Buck Showalter or the Padres, hey, how do you feel about not knowing who's going to start Game 2? And you don't think that's going to piss them off, knowing that they're already looking ahead instead of the team in front of them? That's why the Braves got knocked off. That's why the Dodgers got knocked off. That's why the Mets got knocked off. So be better, because if the Mets, the Braves, or the Dodgers would have been in the World Series, nobody would have batted an eye about the bye. They'd be like, oh, told you they were a great team. Well, that's how it should go. If you don't perform in the playoffs, don't look at the bye week. Don't look at the format. Look at the way you played in that series. Your stars don't come through, that's your problem. See you next year. And that's what the Mets, the Dodgers, and the Braves have to look at as a whole. Yeah, Grant, you know what? Bring that. I can imagine the business is booming there. Let's go. Sledge, how you doing? Sandalwood, yeah, but you know what? Judge can hit it at any park. And, I mean, maybe he had 1 or 2, maybe 4 or 5 cheapies. But, again, still, you know, I'm not going to go crazy on that. But you know what? You know who took advantage of that short porch? The Astros. How many balls just went over the wall in right field in the series? It is what it is. Jose, how you doing? Yeah, Jose, I know they do it to do the MLB playoff format for money. But again, who cares, right? We've talked about this for so many years with the NHL and the NBA, that there's too many teams in the playoffs. But yet, when the NBA gets to the playoffs and the NHL gets to the playoffs, there is no more better viewership than in those playoffs because of the fact. Why do you think Major League Baseball playoffs doesn't get the amount of attention that the NBA does and the NHL does? The NHL, when they get the ratings in, sucks during the season. But when it comes down to the playoff times, it jumps up to a couple of more million because of the fact the playoffs are so good. You know why? Because there's parity. When you get into the playoffs and nobody knows who is going to win, that's what's great about it. And you know what's great about the NFL right now? Look at the Jets. Look at the Giants. Are you freaking kidding me? It makes no sense. Do you think Giants and Jet fans give a damn about their preseason predictions? Some having them winning 4 games, 5 games. They already both beat that total. It's stupid to think that parity and more teams in the playoffs makes it watered down. Because last time I checked, this MLB postseason has been a lot of fun. Even if your team's out of it and your team got embarrassed, grow up. Because if it was your team that was the lowest seed making this run, you wouldn't give a damn. And you could say you would, but you would not. And that's the problem I have with people talking about the format. Because you wouldn't care if it was your team. If you were the Phillies right now, you would not say a word about the format. You would be talking about who should pitch game one, what the lineup should be, how big of a chance do the Mets have, or your team has in the post. You think Philly fans right now are talking about being the 6th seed? No, they're talking about how can we beat the Astros. That's it, and that's what they should be talking about. They shouldn't feel sorry about it. They shouldn't be apologetic about it. They shouldn't be caring what other fan bases think, because at the end of the day, they won the ball games. They got the big hit. They got the big strikeout. They beat the Braves. They beat the Cardinals. They beat the Padres. And they have the opportunity to beat one of the best teams in baseball in the Houston Astros in the World Series. Good for them. Well, Jay, you can think all you want. Jay, are you a Mets fan, Braves fan, Dodger fan? I don't know. Because, again, if your team in the NLCS beats another wildcard team, so be it. I'm sorry. I don't care about the format. Look, all these guys are professionals, right? These guys are in elite shape. If you can't sit down for a couple of days and get a little bit more healthier, you have the advantage with your pitching staff setting up the way you want to as your division first, the 2 best teams in each league. It's only a problem if you make it a problem. If the Phillies win the World Series, you tip your cap, because the same thing the Braves did. The reason why you want to talk about it? All right, here we go. The reason why the Braves won the division last year was the fact that they had no competition in the NL East. So they glided into the NL East division and got hot in the playoffs. Why does nobody talk about them? They should have been a wild card team. If they would have had this record that they had last year, they would have been in the wild card spot. Would anybody would have cared? No. But because they won a very weak division last year, they're division champs. But in reality, they should have been a wild card team. Does anybody care? Does Brave fans care that they won 88 games? It doesn't matter, right? The Braves won. Well, nobody talked about the Braves winning 88 games, but they still won the division. 88 wins would have got you a wild card this year, and that's not comparison. The Phillies have 1 win less, and they're making the World Series. So look at the comparison of the 88 win Braves who won the World Series last year and the 87 win Phillies. Just because their seed is different and the Braves won the NL East because, well, there was no competition in the NL East, there is no difference. The difference is the format. That's it. Oh, RT, I agree. Alien, I agree. The fake rain delay kind of hurt the Guardians in that spot. Aaron, we got muted. We got Charles. No, Alien, but you know what? They try to get 3 games in, especially during the divisional series. They still get they wanted to get a couple of games in a day. And I get it. You know what? I don't mind it. Again, even, people complained about the day games, but you know what? The Philly fans showed up when their game was at 2 p.m. Yankee fans didn't really show up until later in the game, but they showed up. Again, it doesn't matter if your game's 2 o'clock or 9 o'clock. It is what it is. Yeah, but muted, that doesn't matter at the end of the day. At the end of the day, any team now in Major League Baseball who makes the playoffs can win a championship. What that does, that gets more fan bases involved. It gets more fan bases excited. Why is that a negative? It's not. You know what? According to the Dodger fans, before the postseason, it was a done deal that they were going to the World Series, right? You couldn't tell them otherwise. I had guys on my channel, JD, Hype, for months telling me it doesn't matter why we're playing the season. The Dodgers are going to make the World Series. Well, what happened? Whose fault was that? Wasn't the format. Because the Dodgers do what the Dodgers do every year in a real 162-game season. And that is choke when they play a 162-game season going into the playoffs. That's what they do. Dodger fans will never tell you that or actually admit to that, but that's how it is. Well, the NHL is more local, regional, as MLB is probably more regional than Major League Baseball. But the difference and why MLB is expanding the playoff format is because they saw what the NHL did, what the NBA did, what the NFL do. Because last time I checked, why is nobody talking about the NFL having too many teams in the playoffs? Why? Because it brings another fan base into the mix. And yes, it brings money. Yes, it brings everything else. That's it. It is about money. We all know that. But again, if the Mets were in the Philly spot right now, nobody would give a shit. And that's the problem that people got to understand. If I'm telling you guys right now, if the Mets are the 6th seed next year and they make it to the World Series, I want to make sure that everybody who's talking about the format stops watching. Don't even watch the World Series because you're not a real fan. You're not a fan of the team. Because if you care about a seed that you're in, you're more concerned about the format than your team actually winning. Turn off the playoffs. Don't even bother watching. Because if you don't want to worry about your team and rooting for them in the playoffs, do you think Padres fans gave a damn that they were the 5th seed playing the Mets? Nobody cared. You think the Phillies going into the Cardinals think they would care that they were the 6th seed? Nobody cared. And you shouldn't care as a fan. All you should care about, does your team have enough wins to make a playoff spot? If they do, you got a chance to win. If you can't understand that or get involved, get excited about that as a fan, turn off the TV. Nobody tells you to watch it. Go watch volleyball. Pickleball's the thing now. Watch that. That's the problem that a lot of fans have. They're so steadfocused of, well, in 1975, when 4 teams made the playoffs, who cares? It's 2022. Get over it. I don't necessarily like the format per se, but it is what it is, right? When the first wildcard team came into existence, people hated it. But guess what? When your team started to make that wildcard spot and started to make a run in the playoffs, nobody gave a shit. So until your team is in that spot and goes on a run, you'll be the first one cheering, buying tickets to the playoffs, to the World Series. You're going to be doing that. If you continue to worry about the format, you're not looking at the bigger picture. And that is just rooting on your team no matter what seed there are. I mean, what did the number 1 seed Dodgers get? They got a consolation prize. Congratulations. Your fans can win. Your fans can gloat all they want. That's it. That's all it was. The Mets and the Braves fans went back and forth all year about the division. At the end of the day, the Braves played one more game than the Mets. So who cares? Did the Dodgers complain when they had to play a wild card game because they played one game less? They won one game less than the San Francisco Giants? No, they played. It is what it is. Send it what I like that. Yeah, I agree. I don't look. If you want to make a 3-game wild card series, which when it was only a 1-game wild card, people should like, oh, it should be a 3-game series, best out of 3. And then when they do that, people complain about that. I don't know, like, and you know what's gonna and the people who was like, oh, only the 2 best teams from each league should make the playoffs and have it that way. Well, okay, great. So 3 100-win teams, that would have meant that the Dodgers would have played the Braves and the Mets would have never made the playoffs because of the tiebreaker. So that means it would have been Braves, Dodgers, Yankees, Astros. Okay. And then all the other fan bases that won 96, 99, and 95, 101 Mets wouldn't make the playoffs. People would be pissed anyway. Yeah, the Giants and the Jets. How about that, right? No, muted. I agree that it waters down the regular season, but let's be honest. How many times did the MLB regular season? We all know it's too long, but I can assure you, if they drop it back down to 154 games, people will complain. Oh, if we had another week of the season, we might have caught this team for the division. And then you lose the division. Now you're a wild card team. And you might lose in the first round. And then you're going to complain about that. You're not going to make everybody happy. It comes down to money. You know what? If there was no such thing as the wild card, the Mets would have never made the playoffs. I enjoyed going to the 2 games that we faced against the Padres, especially for a fan base that doesn't make the playoffs every year. It was nice to buy this hoodie for the playoffs. It was nice going to a game, getting excited, waving the rally towels. It's fun. I might have not had that 15 years ago. So, you know what? There was people on my channel over 400 strong in that Friday game against the Padres that checked out the live stream. So don't tell me that these wild card games are not exciting or the regular season is watered down. Yeah, okay. So what? We should knock the NBA to 40 games because the regular season doesn't matter there. But you know what? They fill up the arenas. They get a lot of good ratings during the season because people love basketball. And it is what it is. Again, it's not like Met fans didn't get excited for the playoff round. Yeah, it sucked that we didn't win the division. But for all we know, we would have won the division, faced the Phillies, and got knocked out in 4 games. But we don't know that. And we would have been even disappointed anyway. Alien, I do agree with that. Hey, Joey, how you doing? From Jersey. Let's see, Alien. That's the issue. I had some other Met fans, when the Met fans lost to the Braves series, they may lose in the division I agree. They made a much bigger deal than what it was. What the Mets should have focused on more after the Braves series was not looking past the Padres and doing everything they can to win that Padres series, and then going into the next round facing the Dodgers. As you saw, the Dodgers struggled offensively. Anything can happen. And I think we basically felt bad for ourselves. And I think the Mets team felt sorry for themselves. Like, oh, we didn't win the division. Damn, I don't even think we should play hard. It seemed like they were demoralized by just not winning the division. Yeah, I know you had it the entire year, but grow a pair. Show up in the wild card game. You didn't. Yeah, Ellie, I know. That's Elijah Vera Tucker and Breece Hall, man. That's rough for the Jets. That's rough. Yeah, Jay, but then again, what does that really solve? Nothing, right? So there's still going to be wild card teams going into the next round that can possibly beat division teams. Again, stop making excuses for these division winners. You play great all year. You win your division. You claim you're the best team in baseball or one of the better teams in baseball. Your big guys didn't show up. That's on them. Too bad. You know what? Where was Mookie Betts? Right? Where was anybody else? The big stars on the Dodgers. Where they didn't show up. The Braves, the same thing. The Mets, the same thing. I mean, it's too bad. What is the Astros' excuse, right? We talk about this, but yet I know the American League wasn't as good, but the 1 and 2 seed made the American League Championship Series. Why is nobody talking about that? Well, yeah, NBA regular season does have terrible ratings, but yet it's one of the bigger markets over the major sports. The NBA has better marketing and better viewership around the world, right? We only get the NBA US ratings, but around the world, the NBA is huge. That's what I was talking about, right? Nobody cares about the Major League Baseball regular season in any other country. Same thing goes for the NHL, except for Canada. So it's like the NBA is global, right? The NFL is trying to go global, but it will be a disaster. It doesn't work. Maybe for 1 or 2, 3 games a year, but that's about it. Well, Muty, yeah, that's what I'm trying to say. The Mets lost because of the broken down pitching. 1, that's on the front office. 2, that's on Scherzer, DeGrom, and Bassett. That's it. So it has nothing to do. All right, Jay, only 1 moves on, but that 1 wildcard team can go to the World Series, and then what are you going to say then? Then you have to say what you keep on talking about the format. The format is flawed. You know, if you want to go back to 4 teams, go ahead. But then the Mets would have never made the playoffs, and then you're just going to be sitting there twiggling your thumbs, complaining about the format yet again. If you're going to continue to complain about the format and not realize how fun this postseason was, are you really a baseball fan? Really think about it. Are you really a fan of that sport? Because if you think more teams is a bad thing in the playoffs, you're mistaken, because it's a really good thing, because it comes down to the fact that there's more fans involved. There's more fans talking back and forth to each other. More fans able to go to a playoff game that might have not have if there wasn't an extra team in the playoffs. It's not bad. It's not a bad thing. Jay, but it's not your format doesn't work either, because at the end of the day, there's still going to be only 1 possible division winner that goes to the NL or ALCS. And if the wildcard team wins, you're going to end up with a lower seed going to the NL or ALCS facing a division winner. Just because division winners sucked in the playoffs and didn't show up when the spotlight got on them, that's on their fault. Well, Aaron, that's your choice. But the postseason is boring because you make it boring, because your team's not in it. Again, see, this is what I don't like with some people. You know, you claim you're really big baseball fans, and I hope you guys are, but this baseball playoffs wasn't boring at all. If you watch these games weren't boring. They were a lot of fun. Just because your team blew up and embarrassed themselves, no matter what team fan base you are, if you're a Dodger fan, a Braves fan, a Mets fan, if your team embarrassed themselves, that's on them, right? I know Met fans cheered our asses off at Citi Field, because I went to game 1. I went to game 2 and 3, and I enjoyed myself. Yeah, we lost, but I see it this way. If the wild card wasn't a thing, the Mets would have never made the playoffs, and then people would have complained, how can the Mets have 101 wins and not make the playoffs? Well, that's what you would have said. And again, I'm not saying you have to have a rooting interest when your team is not, if you're the Mets and the division series starts without your team. I'm not saying you have to have a rooting interest. But if you're a fan of baseball, it should be fun watching the game of baseball, because there's so many things that you can look at and say, wow, look at that, look at this team, the Phillies, that struggled in the first half, fired their manager, Rob Thompson came aboard, and the Phillies were a totally different team with basically almost the same players, right? Robinson, the guy that I got for their bullpen to help out their bullpen, is not even on the roster because he got hurt. And it is what it is at this point. It was fun watching it. Yes, I'm not rooting for the Phillies. Now, granted, I wanted the Phillies to beat the Braves because Brave fans, again, where are the Brave fans? Right? They were all over my channel for 3 months. Right? Ever since June 1st kicked in, Brave fans were all over my channel. They're nowhere to be found because I know JL was here. But other than that, they're a front-running fan base. They always will and always have been. Right? I don't like Yankee fans, but I know as a New Yorker that they're passionate in their team. Even though they're delusional about how good their team actually was, they had the passion. I don't want the Phillies to win the World Series. That's annoying. But I wanted them to beat the Braves because I wanted to shut up the Brave fans, right? I went to Philadelphia a couple of times this year, obviously in Met games. And I spoke to Philly fans, right? There was a couple of Phillies fans that came up to me because they recognized me from the channel. They said they were subscribers. They said hi every now and then. And they said to me, they go, we know that you're a Mets fan. We know that you throw your bias as a Mets fan coming in, but you were fair to the Phillies, right? I wasn't lying when I said the Phillies had bad defense. They did. But it hasn't really come to play in the playoffs. Whatever they've done badly, they got it just good enough to where it hasn't hurt them in the playoffs. Their bullpen is basically the same all year, but they pitch better at the right time. That's called clutch. The same thing with Bryce Harper. Listen, I'm one of the advocates of Bryce Harper, who I always thought choked in big spots. Well, you know what? I don't know if he'd grown into his own, a little bit older, a little bit mature, but guess what? Bryce Harper got the job done. He got that big home run to put the Phillies into the World Series. Again, I try to be as fair as possible. Yes, I go after people. Well, muted. That's just wrong. It's wrong because if the Mets were in the Philly spot, nobody would care, right? Were the Nationals worthy of a World Series championship? They're not deserving. What about the Braves, who had one more win than the Phillies last year? Were they deserving of a World Series? Why is the Phillies not deserving, but the Braves were? They won 88 games. The Phillies won 87. There's no difference. Just because the division sucked last year, the Braves were able to easily win the NL East. Now, granted, it sucks, but the Phillies were one of the better teams in the second half in all of baseball, record-wise. They got back into that wild card spot. They even made a little bit of a tidbit of a run when the Mets and Braves were struggling for the division. Yeah, they didn't get there, but it is what it is, right? The Phillies can face the Astros and get swept. And then people were like, oh, the Phillies weren't that good. Well, you know what? It was a good run for the Phillies. And you know what? Why do the Dodgers deserve to be in the World Series, but not the Phillies? The Dodgers weren't clutch. They're big performing guys that everybody talked about all season. Didn't get it done in those spots against the Padres. That's on them. That's nobody else's fault. If you're a better team, you should beat them. That's on that better team not getting it done. Ron, that is true. I do like Dusty Baker. Honestly, that guy is like Buck Showalter in many ways. Never really got over the top, make dumb managerial decisions. But sometimes the talent outweighs the manager. And I think this is what's really happening with the Astros. Well, muted. It wasn't a crapshoot in Atlanta. Atlanta played terrible. The Phillies just got clutch hits. Ron, I don't call a dynasty unless you win a couple of championships in a row. The last dynasty was the Yankees of the late 90s, right? Everybody talked about, even the Brave fans, where they're nowhere to be found right now, which is not shocking. The Braves were talking about a dynasty, but yet they're the same team that won in 95 and were nowhere to be found. Louis, DeGrom and Judge to the Yankees? No. Judge is going to be a Giant, and DeGrom is probably going to be either a Met or somewhere else. And I'm sorry, you can't call yourself a dynasty until you win at least 2 championships in a row, or at least 3 out of 4, or at least 3 out of 5, right? The Red Sox kind of had it. Yeah, exactly, committee. The Red Sox kind of had a dynasty, right? What do they won? 3 world championships in 10 years or something like that? That's pretty good. Like, that's what you call a dynasty now, because it's so hard to go back to back. X the Braves, X the Dodgers, X the Nationals. Right? It is what it is. Well, muted. I agree. I agree with that. I think DeGrom is only going to get $40+ million from the Mets. I don't think any other team is going to take that chance. The reason why the Mets will probably have to give it to DeGrom is because he is a Met. I don't see the Braves, the Dodgers, the Yankees looking at it and be like, are we going to give a guy who's not a homegrown guy $40+ million where we don't know if he's going to be healthy? We don't know if he's the same pitcher. I think DeGrom's going to get a rude awakening, to be honest with you. I think he's going to get $45 million and get more than Scherzer per year. I think only one team's going to give it to him, and that's going to be the Mets. And again, I would go a different route. I already said it, and I'm going to talk about this later on with my videos coming up during the offseason. I think the Mets should not even think about giving the money to DeGrom. You can get 2 pitchers that are very good for that same price and solidify your rotation with good pitchers. Because let's be honest, can you name me a great pitcher? Verlander is a Hall of Famer, but he hasn't shown his dominance this year in the playoffs. Valdez is good, but he's not great. Wheeler is very good, but not great. Nola is good, but not great. So this postseason should tell you that you don't need great pitchers. You need solid, good pitchers that can get you to the 6th or 7th inning and get to the back of your good bullpen. Because the Astros have been doing it with their bullpen. The Phillies have been doing it with their offense. 57 runs in 11 games. It's going to be very hard to lose all games like that. So, Alien, I don't know if you guys follow me on Twitter, but I even put a tweet. I go, Aaron Judge should pull a Kevin Durant. If you can't beat him, join him. #Astros. That's what I put on my when I tweeted the last night. And I honestly believe that the Mets I think the Mets should spend the majority of their money. I think because I think the Mets are probably going to go over the $300 million mark for a salary cap. No, muted. I agree. But I can't give DeGrom $45 million, and I have no idea if he's going to pitch every 5th day. He hasn't done it in 2 years. All right? Especially with a Max Scherzer who is another year older next year with now a new type of oblique injury he never had in his career. Now, again, if the Mets go out and say, the hell with it, we're going all in, just like JL said, and I think Steve Cohen is pissed. I think he was pissed off the Mets didn't win the division, and I think he was very pissed off that we didn't get past the wild card round. I think the worst thing that could have happened for Major League Baseball and all the teams was the Mets not going on a deep run in the playoffs because of the fact that Steve Cohen does not give a damn about any other team. And Would I be shocked if Cohen goes $45 million for 4 years for DeGrom? Hey, we're going to sign Trey Turner. And you know what? We're going to get Carlos Rodon. And you know what? We're going to get a Josh Bell. Or we're going to find a way to get Ohtani if it's in a trade, which I don't think the Mets should do in a trade. I'd rather wait 1 year and get him in free agency and do that. Now, when you got DeGrom, Scherzer, Peterson, McGill, and you have Carlos Rodon, that's a pretty damn good rotation. And then you got Trey Turner that you can throw him in second base, put McNeil to left field. I like that a lot better. JL, no, you can keep that wife beater and that DUI guy. You can keep him. Well, muted. That's why when owners are so stupid and they try to put that extra luxury tax in like Steve Cohen gave a damn, owners are mad because Steve Cohen is going to show them that all of these owners do have money to buy any player they want. Because they pocket the money, it makes them look bad. And that's the problem. Like I said, I don't think the Mets are going to throw the bank at Aaron Judge, but I do think Steve Cohen is going to make a couple of offers. One, to increase the contract that the Yankees are going to offer him a little bit more, just to piss off the Yankees a little bit. And just to show that Steve Cohen can just throw money around and nobody can tell him what to do. Yeah, okay, Aaron, but then the Dodgers beat the Padres the same amount of games. And yet the Padres beat the Dodgers. Too bad. Boo-hoo, cry me a river. It is what it is. So it comes down, once again, I think Steve Cohen is going to go crazy this offseason. Now, I know people weren't necessarily extremely happy with the offseason, even though most Met fans, I think it was a solid offseason. You know, getting Scherzer put the cherry on top. Kana, Marte, we all know Marte was a really good signing. Kana was a decent signing. Sure, Escobar was a disaster until September. But I think it was good moves. But Steve Cohen knows that even though those were good moves, when you needed Kana, when you needed Escobar, they didn't come through. You know what? Guys like Trey Turner, you know, you could talk about Aaron Judge in the playoffs. That guy worries me in the playoffs. He's never going to have a career year like he did this year again. So to look at the fact that there's guys that the Mets can get to make this team better, I think Cohen's going to throw another $100 million into this payroll. Because remember, a lot of money's coming off the books as well, right? A ton of money is coming off the books. We got a lot of free agents. You know, I would not be mad if the Mets don't bring back Nimmo. I said this a couple of weeks ago. When Marte went down, the guy that we needed the most in the top of the order was Brandon Nimmo. And he absolutely failed this team in the month of September when we lost Marte. Because Marte was the security blanket to Brandon Nimmo. Because when Brandon Nimmo was struggling, Marte seemed to always pick up the top of the lineup. As soon as Marte was gone and we needed Nimmo to get on base, steal a few bases, he was striking out more than he did the entire season. His average went down 20 points, and his walk rate went down a lot. And guess what? You can't have that at the top of your order for a guy who's going to make between $90 and $100 million. For a guy that you can't put at the top of the order and says, we need you in the biggest spots, Nimmo didn't come through. I'm sorry. When Marte went down, Nimmo was the guy that needed to be that spark plug. And look at the numbers for Brandon Nimmo in the month of September. His worst month was September in the season. His best month was July. His okay month was August. His worst month was September. April, May, June is excellent. But you also had Marte to pick him up as well. But as soon as Marte went down, the top of the order spark plug that we needed was Brandon Nimmo. You can't have a leadoff hitter that doesn't steal bases. All right? He gets on the base path. He's one of the fastest. He's very fast when he runs, but he doesn't know how to steal bases. He'll have 2 good months, and then when you need him most, like the Mets needed him in September when Marte was gone, he was a no-show. Walk rate went down. Base hits went down. Average went down 20 points. He finally gets on base. We need him to steal a base. No way, no how. He's not going to do it. I suggest getting Trey Turner. One, to put him as the leadoff hitter. Yes, he can steal bases. Marte also can steal bases. That's your 1-2 punch there. I'd rather give $100+ million to Trey Turner than to give $100 million to Nimmo, who is a very good player, but is not the guy that I can trust at the top of the order when we need him the most. And once again, if you think Nimmo is between a $90 and $100 million a year player, you have not watched him enough or understand that when he goes into a slump, he is one of the worst leadoff hitters that the Mets can have where you have to trust him the most. And again, I keep saying it. When Marte went down, Nimmo needed to be that spark plug, and he had his worst month in the month of September when the Mets needed him most when Marte was out. Turner is a great leadoff hitter. He's got a ton of speed. His defense is really good. I don't know if Nimmo is worth $100 million. Home slice, 5 years. I probably think he'll get more than that, to be honest with you. But I think Turner is more of an overall better player. Put it this way: if you're gonna give if Turner's gonna get 5 year $100 million, and Nimmo's gonna get 5 years $95 million, who's the better player? We all know who that is. It's Trey Turner. So for an extra $5 million, I'm going to get a dynamic leadoff hitter who plays great defensively. And you rather give $5 million left for Nimmo, who doesn't show up when you need him the most, and plays one of the deepest center fields more than any other center fielder in Major League Baseball, because he can't go back on balls. So that entails all the jammed hits that fell in front of Nimmo, all the light base hits, fly balls that fell in front of Nimmo, is because analytics helped him with going back on balls, because Nimmo, percentage-wise, defensive percentage was terrible going back on balls. So the Mets says, all right, we can make you a better defensive center fielder, but you got to play deeper. Well, why do you think Nimmo made all these catches in the gap and made that great catch, which is talent and just pure athleticism, against the Dodgers? Because, yeah, statistically a great center fielder, because the Mets played him deeper, because analytics show that Nimmo is terrible going back on balls. Nimmo, when he first came up, played much more shallow in his career before the analytics team in the last 2 years told him, play deeper. You're better coming in on balls than going back. That's why he became a better center fielder. It's not because he's reading balls better. It's because of the fact that analytics told him you got to play deeper because you don't go back on balls well. But yet, jam shots and light fly balls have fell in center field because he's playing too deep. So he's not a great center fielder. All right. Statistically, yes, because of the positioning that analytics put him in. But he's not that good going back on balls. That's why he plays so deep. All them balls. And on top of that, he has a terrible arm for a center fielder. He doesn't steal bases. Showed up. He was non-existent in September as a leadoff hitter. And you want to give a guy close to $100 million because he's a good player? Good players don't deserve $100 million. A dynamic player like Trey Turner, you give $100 million. If there's a $5 to $10 million gap for total payroll, Muted, look at it. You saw it. Nimmo is a product of analytics. They played him more deeper because he can't go back on balls. Nimmo's great going side to side. That's why he got to a lot of balls in the gap, because he was playing basically 5 steps from the warning track at all times. And analytics puts you in a better spot, left to right, gap to gap, depending on who's hitting, right? When analytics show that Freddie Freeman hits shades and hits the ball to left center, you're going to shade Nimmo to left center. But when you play deep and there's a rocket in the gap to left center, well, Nimmo doesn't have to go very far because he's already playing deep. It's not a product of Nimmo getting better defensively. It's not like he reads the ball off the bat better. It's a little easier going side to side when you don't have to go back on balls. Nimmo's one of the worst at doing that. That's why they played him more deep. So analytics have a bit, look, like I said, Nimmo got better defensively because of analytics, right? He's very much better coming in on balls than going back on balls. That's why they played him much deeper. But all the balls that come in, and then when you got a guy on second and Nimmo still plays deep and a hard base hit up the middle, there should be a play at the plate. But because Nimmo has no arm in center field, playing him deep hurts you in those situations. And I don't think Nimmo is a $100 million a year player. Yeah, muted my eyes, because all these beautiful analytics that everybody like to talk about means absolutely nothing, because I see Nimmo has no arm. I see Nimmo plays very deep. And that's why he gets the balls in the gap, because he don't have to go back on balls as far, and he's not a good reader of a ball off the bat. That's why have a hard time going back on balls. And that's his biggest concern. That's why the Mets moved him back about 5 to 6 steps. Yeah, Ken, he does. But he's not a great reader off the bat, because when you position in a certain area, of course, you have more time to react because you don't have to move as much because of the fact you're playing a lot more deeper than usual. And the downside of Nimmo playing deeper, yeah, it makes him a better center fielder analytically, because you're playing deeper, he's going to get to more balls in the gap. He's going to get to the deeper hit fly balls. But you got a guy on second, and Nimmo's playing 5 steps from the warning track. Well, guess what? Oh, don't give me D-WAR. I can't stand those stats, okay? Those mean nothing to me, all right? How many balls that get hit hard up the middle with a man on second, and there's no shot of throwing out the runner? Daniel Vogelback can score from second from Nimmo trying to throw out a guy at the plate. You can't play a guy deep who has no arm, because it burns you every time a runner's in scoring position. Defensive WAR, and again, don't give me that analytic crap. Give me defensive assist. That matters. No, math means nothing in baseball, because analytics has destroyed the game of baseball. Right? Defensive assists. What are defensive assists? Right? Throwing out runners at particular bases. Right? How many more times does a hard hit ball up the middle with a guy on first? The guy goes first to third with no throw from Nimmo. How many guys did Nimmo throw out this year on a base path? Maybe 1, possibly 2. That has nothing to do with math. It has everything to do with the eye test, right? Analytics, right? People talked about analytics. Yeah, but muted. They actually got guys that have talent as well. You don't need analytics to tell me that Alvarez is a great player. You don't need analytics to tell me that Bregman is clutch in the playoffs. You don't need analytics to tell me Maldonado is a great defensive catcher. You know what I see? Eye test, right? Tim, I was just about to say that. The Rays and the A's use analytics better than anybody when it comes to figuring out who are the guys they can get for the least amount of money that can help them win ball games. But you know what they never do? They never win a World Series. Yeah, they might get to the playoffs, but they don't win a World Series. Yeah, Joe, I'm going to do the top 20 free agent predictions for Major League Baseball. I'm going to do the top 20. So I'm going to look at probably whoever puts the top 20 biggest free agents out. Yeah, but JL, you know what? You also got talented players as well, right? You know, Harris is not talented because the Braves analytics is putting him in all the right spots. Analytics might have told them, hey, this kid is pretty good, and it gave him a reason to sign him to a major league extension and stuff like that, right? You know, no analytics can tell me that if you look at Judge's analytics, they're amazing. How did that help him in the playoffs, right? The eye test told me that he was squeezing the bat a little tighter, that he's not clutch in the playoffs. That's what that tells me. That's an eye test. That has nothing to do with analytics. So WAR and D-WAR, you know what I care about from a defensive player? Assist in the outfield. That's when you throw runners out when a guy is trying to go first to third, or a guy is coming home from second base on a line drive base hit to center field. Muted. Clutch isn't real? Really? Bryce Harper wasn't clutch last night? In the 8th inning when they were down by 1? That's not clutch? Was Bregman not clutch? Was Jeremy Pena not clutch last night when the Astros were down 3-0? That's clutch, right? You don't need stats or analytics to tell you players that are clutch, right? You just don't. You know, all those analytical stats are so obsolete in baseball because of the fact that you have people that came on this channel and said Vogelback has better OPS numbers and on-base percentage than Trout and Alonso, and that made it okay to put him in the DH spot when he's batting .215. All right? Don't tell me that on-base percentage and all types of other stupid analytics. But no, Harper has been a joke in the playoffs in his career. So Harper has suddenly been a great postseason player this year. With the Nationals, he was terrible. So Harper is just not good, right? It's been well known that Harper was terrible in the playoffs until this postseason. So analytics tells me that Bryce Harper is a terrible postseason player until this year. Analytics didn't tell me that. The eye test told me that. Him coming up in the 8th inning and hitting a big 2-run homer to put your team into the World Series is clutch. But you can't tell me analytics tells me that Harper is good because he's good. Because the guy's he's a good ball player. Okay, we knew that. But he choked every spot in the postseason in his career with the Nationals. So no analytics or no stats is going to tell me. Nobody could have predicted that Harper would do this in the postseason. A better lineup around him. I mean, come on. So Judge had 62 home runs, had over 140 RBIs, almost won the Triple Crown. Who did he have around him? Right? So he had a great regular season, and now he gets to the postseason with the same team around him, by the way, and then looks like a player that shouldn't be an MVP. Because in his career, he hasn't been good in the postseason until you are. That's it, right? Who did Harper have in the lineup last year when he was National League MVP? Right? They didn't even make the playoffs, but he was MVP. Right? You're at the plate. This is an individual sport, all right? It is. Judge got challenged the entire postseason with fastballs down the middle, balls right over the plate that he crushed during the season. But in the postseason, he got that same fastball down the middle, he popped it up. Okay, they went right after Judge. So if they went right after Judge, that means he missed a lot of fastballs. Because I watched the game. You only need the eye test. You don't need analytics. Muted. You don't need analytics. Look. There was a few fastballs last night that Judge crushed in the regular season. He didn't crush it in the playoffs. There was many pitches that Judge crushes during the regular season. But guess what? When you know you haven't been good in the postseason, when you know that you struggled your entire career in the postseason, you're going to squeeze that bat a little tighter. You're going to try to do too much. Right? But Muted, I'm not. It's the eye test. He did get the same fastballs. There was a lot of fastballs. Look, you're telling me that they challenged him around the plate, but in the regular season, they were walking him all over the ballpark. He had probably one pitch to hit over the last month of the season in each game. But yet, he still found a way to get that one pitch and hit it over the wall. He had many pitches over the plate and better pitches, and he didn't do it. I'm sorry. It comes down to the fact that clutch is not because you're a good player, right? Trent Grisham is clutch, but he's a 180 hitter in the season. Analytics told me nothing about Trent Grisham when he was one of the better players for the Padres in the playoffs. Got big home runs in the playoffs. What analytics told me that Trent Grisham is going to be a pain in the ass in the postseason? Show me analytics that show me Trent Grisham is going to be a good player. But Jimmy, exactly. He's not a good player. He had a couple of good games, but those couple of good games won the Padres some games. Right? No analytics is going to tell me that Trent Grisham is a good ball player because he's terrible. But, right, nobody can tell me that Daniel Murphy was going to have one of the best postseason runs offensively in baseball history. No analytics tells me that. He's a gap-to-gap hitter who all of a sudden got power in the postseason. What analytics tells me that? He was an average good player. You know what it comes down to? Baseball being a lot more complicated than people want to admit. Ken, thank you. Jesus. Analytics tells you this guy this is the best spot for this guy to be in, just like with pitchers, right? Aaron Boone only uses analytics to manage, yet analytics told you to bring in Frankie Montas as a reliever because analytics tells you that he's very good against the Astros. What does that tell me? The guy hasn't pitched in a month. The same thing with Carpenter. The guy hasn't played in 2 months, but he was great power hitter when the Yankees got him off of a minor league team that nobody thought he was going to ever play again in the majors. Hitting home runs, but analytics told you, hey, Carpenter can hit this righty. Muted. Everybody has the same analytics. Everybody has the same hot and cold zones with every hitter. Every chart shows Frankie Montas has good numbers against the Astros, but that means you throw him into a spot when he hasn't pitched in a month. Analytics don't tell you that. Analytics is good in certain areas. Like I said, it helped Brandon Nimmo play deeper because he's not very good going back on balls. Analytics showed that. That's why they played him deeper. But it affects him throwing runners out on the base paths because he has to come in a few more steps to get a ball. He has a bad arm, so playing deep doesn't make sense. Yeah, Muted. Of course they're going to have their own analytics department. Of course they are. You know why? Because they're separate teams. but everybody can get the same numbers from everybody, right? I can assure you Frankie Montas can have analytics that everybody says, hey, he's great against the Astros, right? That's what everybody brought up when the Yankees traded for him. Oh, look what he does against the Astros. But analytics doesn't tell you, hey, he hasn't pitched in a month. Even though he has good numbers against the Astros, why do you think the analytics tells you that he's going to be good in that spot? Because they can't. Because you know why? It's the human element that analytics can't tell you, right? Analytics didn't tell me that Trent Grisham was going to hit a home run in game 1 against the Mets. You know why? Because he sucks as a player during the season, right? No analytics is going to tell me that Bryce Harper is going to do this in the postseason when in his career, he struggled in the postseason. Just like analytics said, Judge should be the best player in the postseason because of the year he had this year. And he was 1 for 16 in the ALCS. So analytics, I'm not saying analytics is bad. It's good, probably more for drafting and developing players and putting them in defensive right spots, which I'm gonna tell you right now, analytics is kind of going on the wayside a little bit because when analytics helps you with the shift and the shift is bad next year, watch how fast analytics is going to slowly go away, going out of the way because of the fact that, granted, I like certain stats that, look, Nimmo wouldn't be a better center fielder if it wasn't for analytics. That helped him out. But that doesn't make him better in other spots. Where analytics helped him, it hurt him because he has a bad arm. Can't throw runners out at the plate. His defensive assists are terrible because he has no arm. Playing him deeper doesn't help the fact that he has no arm. And now, if analytics is so important to baseball, Manfred said, F you. Because you know why? The shift is gone. So you could throw that whole defensive book and throw it out the window because you can't play second baseman in right field. And again, analytics is good in certain parts, but you can't throw analytics in my face and say, well, this guy is good because it is. It tells me absolutely nothing when it comes to a player in a big spot. Because number 1, it's luck. Number 2, it's a chance. And number 3, the human element. Right? There's a left-handed batter that is 1 for 20 in his career against that pitcher he faces in the playoffs. But if he hits a home run off of him, you can't bring up analytics because analytics showed that he struggled against that pitcher all year. But he hits a big home run off of him. What is that? That means he got a good swing on the ball. He was looking for a certain pitch, which is luck and which is a chance. That's it. And skill. That's it. Analytics ain't going to tell you that. Analytics took too much of the human element out of the game. And that's why analytics is going to be a dying dynamic in a few years because all that launch angle bullshit that everybody likes to talk about, let me know how the Yankees are doing right now with that launch angle and analytics, which is the biggest complaint I have with analytics. Analytics tells you strikeouts are not bad. That's what analytics tells you. Muted. Well, I agree. It's not a guarantee, but the way teams use it, a lot of teams use it, it's like analytics or nothing at all. And that's the way a lot of teams go with the analytics only because of the fact the numbers say what they are, which is a joke, right? Analytics tells you, like I said, Frankie Montas, great numbers against the Astros, but you don't put him in that spot. There is no analytics that tells me that Montas, who haven't pitched in a month, who never pitched in relief, is going to be better. Is going to be the same pitcher he is against the Astros coming in relief and hasn't pitched in a month. So the Yankees looked at the numbers and says, "Oh, Montas is great because he pitches good against against the Astros." Well, no, because analytics didn't tell you he's been out for a month, and clearly he's going to be rusty. And number two, he never pitched relief in his career. So what does that tell you? Analytics is not perfect. We know that. Yeah, but Jimmy, again, analytics take out the human element, and the human element in probably more sport, in baseball more than any other sport, matters, right? Okay, Jimmy, but it's not an end-all be-all, and too many teams use analytics to a fault. And when you take the human element out of the game and you only look at numbers and say, well, you know what? This guy got great numbers against him. There's no matter what the circumstances are, right? Analytics can tell you with runners on, this pitcher's really good with runners on base, and he has great numbers against that batter. And then when a guy hits a double off of him, well, analytics didn't help you in that situation because it came down to luck and skill and maybe not throwing the ball in that cold zone that analytics told you to throw it at because you missed. Or even if you did hit that spot, but he found a way to get back onto ball and blooped it into left field and 2 runs come home. Analytics didn't work there. Analytics is needed in the game to a certain extent. But when you use analytics probably more often than you should. Now, I do like analytics for defensive purposes. I think that's very important. Right? Nimmo's not a better center fielder if it wasn't for analytics, right? Positioning your outfielders, shading to the left, shading to the right, playing a little deeper based on the batter. That's where analytics, I think, is more important than this pitcher analytically is good against this batter, but it means absolutely nothing if the pitcher doesn't locate his pitches. If the batter is struggling, but he has good numbers against the pitcher, the team with the better batter might pinch hit for that batter because he has bad numbers against that pitcher. But yet, the person you pinch hit in that batter for might be worse offensively. But because that batter has bad numbers against that pitcher, analytics says he shouldn't be batting in that spot. So, and the Mets are a perfect example. Oh my God, Vogelback. And I talked about this. Vogelback has great numbers against right-handers, right? He was hot. Analytics tell you he was hot going into that series in Oakland. He didn't play one game because there was lefties on the mound, and he can't hit lefties according to analytics. So Ruff, analytically, should be in a lineup all 3 games, and he was an absolute disaster. So that's when analytics don't work. It's not a perfect – the problem is the teams use analytics like it's a perfect algorithm of what's supposed to happen. And when it doesn't happen, the teams use excuses. Well, the numbers said so. I can assure you throughout Major League Baseball history, there was many times when managers went after their gut instead of looking at whatever number they were looking at. When, are you going to take out Jacob deGrom because he has bad numbers? Put it this way. Jacob deGrom has bad numbers against Kyle Schwarber, right? Batting .350, 5 home runs in his career, many RBIs. Are you going to take out deGrom for Seth Lugo? Probably not. Are you going to do what Aaron Judge did to Garrett Cole in Game 3? Are you going to take him out for Trevino? Your pitcher, your ace, you're going to take him out and telling me that Cole didn't have a better chance of getting out of that inning bases loaded than Trevino, who is an average relief pitcher at best? That's analytics. Now, you could say that's bad Yankee analytics, but I can assure you a team can look at that and say, you can actually probably about 29 teams probably have the same analytics if they were in that same spot. Because Cole gave up what? He hit a batter, he walked and they give a light base hit. And you take out your ace. No analytics should tell you to take out your best pitcher that you paid all this money to for a 4 ERA reliever because it doesn't make sense. And that's the bigger problem, JD. I get that. And I think human element is not used enough anymore. And I think it hurts teams like the Yankees. And I'm sorry, but Baker is a guy that everybody talks about that can't get over the hump, right? He's another one similar to Buck Showalter who can't win a World Series. But at some point, Baker, you know what he did? You know who you've seen almost every time late in the innings? You've seen Abreu. You've seen Montero. You've seen Presley. Analytics don't have to tell you that those 3 guys are your 7th, 8th, and 9th guys. You don't need analytics for that. That's just common sense. All right? The Yankees had no idea who they were pitching in any inning based on gut. It was all numbers. Montas good against Astros. Put him in, no matter the situation. Trevino, we got to put him in because Cole has 96 pitches and only gave up a walk, a hits batsman, and a blue pit. But we should take him out because the numbers say you should take him out. That's a problem. And that's all throughout baseball. We see it all the time. Until teams, now, again, somebody's going to have to win the World Series. I don't care if you're perfect at analytics or not. Analytics is not winning you World Series, okay? Clutch hits, good pitching, good defense. It's called baseball. Stop complicating the game of baseball like it's freaking trigonometry or freaking rocket science. It's not. Teams are making baseball more complicated than it is. See the ball, hit the ball. These are professionals. Stop telling you that a guy who has a great curveball, you're going to be sitting curveball because that's what you're supposed to do because the numbers say so. That's stupid. All right. And everybody who played baseball knows you look fastball, adjust to breaking balls. You're going to tell me a professional hitter can't adjust to a breaking ball or an off-speed pitch? Look fastball, adjust to the off-speed and breaking ball pitches? Elite athletes can't do that? You got their mind so messed up with this analytics crap that they're looking for a certain pitch more than just reacting. And I think it hurts a lot of numbers. That's why there's more strikeouts in the game because of the launch angle. That wasn't a gut instinct where a coach says, launch angle makes sense. You'll be a better player. You'll bat 40 points left, but you'll have 40 home runs. Strikeouts don't matter. That's what analytics tells you. No, analytics put that into baseball, not coaches. No, Harvard grads and Stanford grads and Yale grads who never played baseball in their life is typing on a computer an algorithm that says launch angle gives you a better chance to hit a home run because of the shift. But yet, analytics doesn't even tell you when 3 guys, when all 4 of the infield is playing to the right side of second base and you got the shortstop and third base open, don't hit it to the left side. It'll get you on base. No, we don't want you on base. We want you to hit a home run to get a run, but you'll probably strike out more times than not. That's where analytics makes no absolute sense. And analytics, I think, is more important defensively than it is offensively. And I think it hurts more teams than it helps. But somebody has to win a World Series. Everybody in Major League Baseball can be bad at analytics, but somebody's going to have to win the World Series, no matter how bad. You know, the Astros aren't perfect. Does that mean if they win the World Series, they were 98% more effective than the Tampa Rays, who are probably more analytically driven than anybody else in baseball? No. We all know Tampa Bay Rays do everything analytically correct, but they never win it all. So what does that tell you? Maybe they're just not that good analytically, right? Analytics, they have to use analytics because they can't spend on players, so they're living and dying with analytics. You know what's winning the Astros pennants every year? Talent. No analytics is going to tell me that Altuve is not a good player. Nobody's going to tell. Analytics could have probably not told me that Jeremy Pena was going to be one of the better players for the Astros in the postseason. All right, no analytics is going to tell me that. Nah, Jimmy, I don't think so at all. I think it hurts more teams than it helps. I'm sorry. It does. It just doesn't make sense to me. You know, you don't. Analytics told Boone to take out Cole for Trevino. Who in their right mind think that was a good idea? When Cole wasn't getting hit all over the ballpark. It makes no sense to me. So, with that said, guys, Astros, Phillies, 1 seed, 6 seed in the World Series. I put up a poll. I haven't checked the poll since I got on live. I think more people. I asked who wins the World Series. I put up 3 different answers or options: Houston, Philly, or don't care. You guys can check if whatever won. I'm picking the Astros to win the World Series. Not because I don't like the Phillies. I just think the Astros are just going to find a way this year. I think, they haven't lost in the playoffs, so you can say that could be a bad omen. Maybe they will lose, maybe they won't, who knows. But I'll just pick the Astros. I just like their pitching staff more. Their bullpen is dominant, and I think their lineup is more potent than the Phillies, because the Phillies can strike out a little bit more than the Astros. The Astros put the ball in play more, which in effect could make the Phillies defense show their true colors. So we'll see how that goes. Once again, guys, for this channel during the offseason, Mondays, 5 p.m., Mets Talk Live. Wednesday, Mets Hot Stove, 5 p.m. And Friday, MLB Trade Rumors and Free Agency, 5 p.m. on Friday. So Monday, Wednesday, Friday, 5 p.m., all throughout the offseason. And, of course, any breaking news that pops up, I'll either pop on live or do a video. I will be doing a video on my top 20 free agents and where I think they will be going. And, obviously, the biggest free agent to the 20th free agent, I'm going to go over them. I'm going to take a list from either Major League MLB.com top 20, most likely, and use that as a guidance to pick my predictions for the top 20 free agents. I'm also going to do top 3 Mets free agents the Mets should bring back, and top 3 free agents the Mets should bring from outside the organization. With that said, guys, it was fun talking to you guys about the postseason. A lot of talk about analytics, which, again, analytics is going to be non-existent defensively for the most part in the infield because you can't really use it because of the abandoning of the shift. So we'll see how that is going to play into more hits, possibly more double plays. We will see. So with that said, guys, thank you for tuning in to Mets Talk Live. Talking Mets at Rob here. Don't forget to hit on that like button before you go. If you haven't already, share the stream, share the channel, do whatever you got to do to bring up the channel. If you haven't checked out the trolling job for the Yankees, the Aaron Judge short or video that I did, check it out. It's just showing the Yankee fans, look at Aaron Judge, and then just popped up with a Mets jersey. So check it out. It's kind of funny. Just get some views on there. I do it on TikTok. It already got 1,000 hits in about an hour, so it's kind of cool. So with that said, everybody have a good night. Let's see how this World Series is going to pan out. Again, analytics probably say the Astros should win the World Series, but we all know analytics doesn't really work every single time when it comes to the postseason in general. Harper, not a very good postseason player except for this year. So let's go Mets. As always, lots to talk about for the Mets during the offseason. A lot of free agents on the Mets and a lot of free agents and trade possibilities for our New York Mets. With that said, everybody have a good night. Let's go Mets. I'm picking the Astros to win the World Series. Everybody have a good night. See you next time, guys.